Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know I am so ecstatic, thrilled, and honored, pun definitely intended, that you guys really enjoyed my video talking about my concept idea for a For Honor 2 Year 1. Now, I promised you guys in that video that that wasn't the only year I thought of. I've got a concept idea for quite a few years going forward, and I told you guys that if you enjoyed that first video, I'd be happy to share the other years with you, and you guys came back and forth saying that you loved the concept idea for Honor 2, you loved that first year, you liked a lot of the hero designs and hero ideas, you took some issue with a few minor things, but overall, you were excited to hear what I had coming next. So we're gonna do it, guys. We are jumping into it. We're gonna talk about For Honor 2 Year 2 Storms and Steel. Now this year promises a lot of really cool stuff. It does not promise, let me go ahead and get this out of the way, it does not promise any new heroes for the existing factions. However, it does promise a brand new faction. That's right, guys. I came up with a brand new faction for this year. So you're going to get one new faction with 4 heroes attached to that faction. You're going to get at least a hero skin for each of the factions per season. I got a lot that I want to share with you guys, including a brand new game mode idea. So there's a lot to talk about here. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into For Honor 2 Year 2 Storms and Steel. The setup for this season is that the setup for this year is that it's largely Meyer and Samurai focused as they wage war against a brand new faction. We're picking up where we left off last time. Year 1, Season 4 ended with the Wulin fleeing back to Heathmore to warn them of what they discovered in their return journey to China, and when they return, they will first reach the Meyer and try to warn the Samurai about what's happening. Because remember, last season in Year 1, and it's Year 1, Season 4, we had it where the Blue Dragon Corps, led by Tian Qilong, had gone to China to hopefully establish themselves as the new empire there, only to run into a new enemy, and now they had to flee back to Heathmore to warn them what's coming. So they get to the Meyer to tell the Meyer what's going on, which brings us into Season 1, Sakoku. Now, Sakoku is a reference to the Japanese closed country policy. Now, this season involves the Wulin arriving to warn the samurai of the coming threat. Now, the samurai are obviously very wary, and so what they decide to do is they send a shinobi to go and investigate. While this shinobi is away, a daimyo of the Meyer, known as Demon Daigo, takes this opportunity to turn the samurai against their Wulin guests, declaring them enemies now that they have always been. This will lead to a limited time game mode called Daigo's Ambition. However, before a conclusion can be reached, the shinobi who was sent, Kimiko Blackthorn, has returned to recount what she found on her journey. And what she discovers is nightmarish. She swiftly flees back to Heathmore, pursued by this unknown enemy, and when she reports her finding, the samurai immediately put aside their feud with the Wulin and begin setting up naval barricades and defenses for what's coming. So, with this season, we get 2 new hero skins. We get Demon Daigo, who is a Shugoki, and very much like a demon, he's going to have very demon-esque aspects to him. I'm thinking something along the lines of, the Oni from Dead by Daylight. He's going to look very much like an imposing, deadly demon. I imagine him having a really cool designed kanabo with flames running along it, something along those lines. Maybe he has almost like a Blackbeard kind of thing where there are candles or wicks on his mask that have fire coming off of them. Come on with this really demonic look for Demon Daigo. And then for Kimiko Blackthorn, the shinobi, for those who don't know who she is, Kimiko was one of my created characters who's a shinobi who married Richard Blackthorn, the lawbringer who became a daimyo in the Meyer, and so I figured I'd let her have a moment to shine. And that's for what she looks like. There are lots of ways I would approach her. I'm not sure I would be the best person to pick, but definitely wouldn't go a Naruto direction, if you know what I mean. Now, other than those 2 hero skins, we're getting a limited time game mode. In fact, we're getting 2 limited time game modes for each half of the season. For the first half, Daigo's Ambition is a PvE game mode that acts kind of like a swarm mode. I'm seeing this almost like, how when I said the Demon Daigo was kind of like we need to declare war on the Wulin? Well, I see this game mode where you have the Wulin, maybe a leader of the Wulin, be it a Tiandi or a Zhongjun or whatever, having to hold out against waves of samurai attackers, and these could be PvE warriors that come at you, leading all the way up to, say, maybe 2 commanders or 2 not captains, but actual breach commanders coming at you, and you have to fight them off. That'd be kind of neat, I feel like. It'd be kind of a fun kind of twist on a swarm mode. Then, for the second half of the season, you have Kimiko's Flight, which is very much like Zanhu's Gambit, or Sunda's Gambit. It's a variation of Breach for PvE, but in reverse. Kimiko is on Store's stronghold, trying to make her way back to the mire, and you have to protect her as she makes her way to the shore. So it's kind of the same thing there, but with different characters and a different map. It's not super creative, but I thought that would be fun. So that is Season 1 Sakoku, giving us 2 hero skins, 2 game modes. Not a lot, but I didn't want to give too much because Season 2 is where things get real. Season 2, Invasion. The season opens with the invasion finally taking place in the mire. We heard about them for 2 seasons now. It's time for this new enemy to show up. Ships have landed in the harbor of the mire and they unload their cargo. We are introduced to a new enemy faction, the Raja. The Raja are a coalition of South Asian warriors led by a king named Shah Jahan. Hungry to grow his empire ever wider, Shah Jahan has allied himself with the current emperor of China, who we haven't revealed yet. That's going to be revealed in a later year. We're not actually going there now. And have launched a naval invasion of Heathmoor starting in the mire. The samurai must rush to the defense and engage in naval combat. With this season, we get a new faction, 4 new heroes, and a new game mode. And it's going to be a permanent game mode, not a limited time thing. Let's start with the one you really want to hear, the new faction, the Raja. There are 4 heroes in the Raja faction. First up, the Rajput, who's basically based on the actual Rajput Indian warriors. They're the vanguard class that can be played male or female, and their weapon is the Khanda broadsword. Now, when thinking about their fighting style, and I want to preface this, I'm not an expert on balancing or designing movement or styles of fighting in games, but this is just my thought. The fighting style relies on a particular stance, not unlike Conqueror's wind-up or Kyoshin's Kaze stance, where they rotate the sword and their body in a centrifugal motion to build momentum. Now, this is not an all-guard, but merely a way to open with an unblockable attack from the stance that has hyper armor and can flow into further combos. Because when I've seen the Khanda used, and you can see clips of it being used, the wielder moves their body in the sword in centrifugal motions to build up force. Imagine using that almost like what a heavy would do, but not quite, because he will have mobility. That's kind of the direction I wanted to take with the Rajput. The second hero, the Hwarang, who is a Korean warrior. I based him heavily off of Yin Shun-sen, the famous admiral of Korean history. He's going to be our heavy class. He's gender-locked male, and his weapon is the Dongpa, which is a 3-pronged spear. Not quite like a trident like what Gladiator uses, because this is a 2-handed weapon. Now, his fighting style would alternate between 2 modes, pommel and blade. And it's kind of like going to be like Medjai's stances, where he can switch between the 2. While in pommel stance, he has access to a bash, which can displace. And while in blade stance, he has an unblockable thrust attack, which does 30 damage and can lead into follow-up techniques. So that was kind of my approach with the Hwarang. But I wanted a heavy hero that very much emulated South Korean warriors, because I feel like Korea gets slept on a lot. Then that brings us to the third hero, the Callista, a Filipino hero. They are an assassin class hero, gender-locked female. Their weapon are dual Eskrima sticks, because I was very much inspired by Eskrima fighters in Filipino martial arts. Their fighting style is all about deflecting and stunning. One thing that I notice is that something that's being taken away from a lot of heroes in For Honor are stunning taps, like where an enemy gets stunned. I'd like to bring that back with this hero, but in a unique way. When a deflect is performed by this hero, they can guard break like Berserker and can then strike the opponent's head, causing a stun effect, and that makes indicators invisible to them temporarily and may allow them to have some mix-up movements. I think that could be a great way to kind of play with this hero. Make it where they can stun you and give themselves a temporary buff to fight you, and you actually have to use a lot of skill and patience to deal with the Callista. And again, we can expand on these abilities, we can grow on them, we can build on them, but this is just the initial idea. And then finally, the fourth hero, the one that everyone has been anticipating, and the one I finally give you, the Nak Muay, our Thai warrior, a Muay Thai kickboxer. He is our hybrid class. They can be played male or female. They use arm, joint, and leg guards as their weapons, and their fighting style is your hand-to-hand combat warrior. Now, here's how I've designed their fighting style. They have access to a 3-hit combo, which can mix lights, which are punches, and heavies, which are kicks. Any light or heavy can be charged to become an elbow or a knee strike. So essentially, you could hold down the light attack button and throw an elbow. Hold down the heavy attack button and throw a knee, which, like Centurion's punch, can track an early dodge. If the knee lands, it can displace and cause wall splats or ledges. If the elbow lands, it can bleed. And from the guard break, the Knock Moi can perform a clinch move, where instead of just guard breaking, they catch you in a clinch by grabbing your head or shoulders and then delivering a heavy knee strike, which displaces and does 25 points of damage. The third strike in the combo is undodgeable if light and unblockable if heavy, and has dodge cancel capability. And you're like, Raven, you went into way more detail on that one than any other. That's because I train in Muay Thai and I had a lot of time to think on this one. And of course, it has problems. There's some things that might need to be changed about this, but I wanted to create a hero that would satisfy everyone, because everyone's always like, come on, we need a fisticuff hero. We need a hero that fights hand to hand. I still, even now, as I say all this, don't think that's a viable idea in For Honor. But if I were to add it, because after all, we got the rapier hero, and you know what I thought about that. But if we were to add it, this is how I would approach it with the Knock Moi. So we now have a whole new faction, 4 brand new warriors, and the potential to add more. Because get this, guys, I have more ideas for weapons. You could throw in a warrior with Qatar punch daggers. You could throw in a hero with chakram discs. You could throw in a lot of stuff here. We barely scratched the surface. So we have a faction that has the potential to grow. Let me know what y'all think of that. But before you do, hear about this new game mode idea called Naval Battle. Naval Battle is a game mode similar to Dominion, where the battle takes place on 2 ships locked together in combat. So the opening animation could be 2 ships crashing together and then grappling hooks or gangplanks landing against each other to hold them in place. The object of the mode is to capture the enemy team's ship. This is accomplished by crossing over to the other side and slaying their captain. Think like a breach commander, but instead a pirate. Each ship will be deploying minions and officers to attack the enemy ship and commander. Also, intermittently throughout the match, like maybe every 3 minutes, waves will hit the ship and clear the deck of all minions and officers, also staggering all players briefly. Players can heal by retreating to their own side if it's uncontested. So basically what this game mode is, it's a glorified capture the commander. So you're jumping over to the other side to try to capture the enemy's captain, but you got to be careful because they're going to be trying to do the same thing to you. And you can't just ignore the other side because officers and minions will be moving in between them as well. So that's kind of the idea that I had with this one, and it'll give us a new map called Matsu Bay, which will be the first one for naval combat, and we can add more throughout the years. This was an idea I've had for a very long time, because if there's one thing we are missing in For Honor, especially with some of these warriors, it is naval combat. So I thought this would be a cool addition to For Honor. But that is Season 2. That is Season 2 Invasion. I know that was a lot, and I'm sorry that I went on forever on that, but I had to lay all that out. But now we got to move on to Season 3. After the fun of Season 2, we're moving on to Season 3, Leadership. Okay. So the samurai were obviously unable to halt the invasion entirely, and the enemy has now landed in the mire, beginning their invasion plan. The samurai are forced to mount serious defenses, so they call on any available daimyo to hold the tide. However, one daimyo, Richard Blackthorne, hey, he's here, recognizes the hopelessness of the situation and appeals to the emperor to retreat from the mire and rally at Ashfeld and plead for the aid of the knights. To help, he even volunteers to act as the rear guard and use his own forces to hold back the enemy. He meets one of the enemy commanders, Admiral Yi Shun-shin, who has successfully broken the enemy forces to get inside. So, that's essentially what's going on. So, to summarize that, the enemy is at the gates, the Raja have broken through. Richard Blackthorne's idea is we can't hold this position, retreat to Ashfeld and beseech the Ashfeld Knights for aid. I will hold off the enemy. And he meets with Admiral Shen, who is a Hwarang, to discuss terms of either surrender or battle. So that gives us 2 new hero skins, Richard Blackthorne, the Lawbringer, and Admiral Shen, the Hwarang. For Richard Blackthorne, just make him look awesome, kind of have this hybridization of samurai armor and lawbringer armor. I think if you can find some sweet spot there, it'd be really cool. And as for Admiral Shin, make him look badass. Make him look like an absolutely goated Admiral Yinshun Shin with a really cool weapon. I think that'd be awesome. I think that'd be really cool. And this will also lead to a limited time game mode, the Black Dragon Stand. This game mode is a play on Dominion. It's a PvP game mode similar to the Assassin's Creed game mode. The defender's territory is occupied by Blackthorn and the attacking territory is owned by Shin. The two teams must work to gain points by taking territory, but killing an enemy leader, whichever one you do, grants 400 automatic points to the team, and the total number you need is 1,000. The leader of the enemy team will respawn after a brief period, and the team that kills him gains a temporary shield and stamina buff for 1 minute, similar to killing a breach captain, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the way I see this working. You capture points, you take down the commanders, and you try to win. I thought that this would be a fun little game mode to add to this, especially, and keep in mind, I know that y'all are probably saying, wow, none of this is as big or bombastic as that Season 2. Keep in mind, when a new faction is introduced, like what happened with Marching Fire, quite often you gotta spend some of the year kind of on slow-mo just to kind of let people still get used to these new heroes. So that's the way I look at it. So that is what I have for Season 3. Now that leads us into Season 4, the last season of the year, Fall of Koto. And if you guys don't remember, Koto is the name of the capital for the Mire. Blackthorn's stand worked. That's the first thing you need to know. It worked. And the samurai were able to evacuate a large portion of their civilians and daimyo, allowing the Raja to march almost unchallenged into Koto. However, the samurai, unwilling to capitulate without wounding the enemy, left behind a single garrison, known as the Tigers of Seijuro, commanded by the descendants of the once daimyo Seijuro from the campaign, who refused to follow the orders of the emperor and would stand and fight to the last man. See, the way I look at it is, Seijuro, even after the events with Apollyon, still rakled at the idea that he had to take orders from Ayu, who was the new empress. He didn't like taking orders from her, so he was kind of a loose cannon, and Ayu was like, whatever, as long as you don't come after me or try to depose me, I don't care what you do. So Seijuro and all of his descendants and all of his followers became the Tigers of Seijuro, and they do whatever they want. As long as they don't oppose the Mire directly or oppose Ayu's rule directly, Ayu lets them do what they want. So what they've decided to do here is they decide that they're going to hold their ground and die fighting the Raja. Now, rather than risk so many lives, Admiral Shin offers a compromise. Let the champion of Seijuro's house fight their champion. In the end, Nai Kanum Tom wins. But Admiral Shin is displeased with the victory because something sits ill with him, though he can't say what it is. And what it is will be a secret for later on down the road. Now this gives us 2 new hero skins. The champion of Seijuro, who remains nameless. He's an Orochi hero skin that looks like an updated Seijuro. And I know, everyone's going to say the same thing. We don't need a third Orochi hero skin. I want to say 2 things about that. Number 1, we could very easily make this a Kyoshin if you prefer. We could very easily change this to Kyoshin. But number 2, when I first designed this, we didn't get that second Orochi hero skin yet, so I feel vindicated in why I did what I did. But honestly, now that we have 2 Orochi hero skins that exist, sure, we could change it to Kyoshin if you really wanted to. The point is, this is a person who wants to emulate and embody who Seijuro was, so I thought it would make sense for him to be an Orochi. And then you have the other hero skin, Nai Kanum Tom, who is a Nakamoi based on the real Nai Kanum Tom from history. And we will also get a new brawl map for the samurai, Koto's Gate, which is, you know what, Belvedere, which is that Wulin duel map, very similar, but I see it as more broken down, like it just endured a huge invasion, and it's outside of a Torii gate. Like, do you remember the way the loading screen looked, or the prep battle screen looked during the Sohei season? How you had this open field of sand, and you had a Torii gate standing there. I see something very similar to that. Imagine that, but a dual map. Imagine that sandy field, but a dual map. That's kind of what I'm seeing here in front of the Koto Gate, and you could treat it as a duel and brawl map. So I think that would be really, really cool. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my plan for Honor Year 2, Seasons 1. For Honor Year 2. No, For Honor 2, Year 2. I'm dumb. I'm sorry. It's all these numbers. For Honor 2, Year 2, Seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4. I did it. I finished. I made it. So, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on this idea? What do you have to say about the idea of this faction? Do you like the 4 heroes that are there? Do you like the idea behind their weapons? What are some ways you could see their movesets being different? What do you think about the new map ideas or the new game mode idea, Naval Battle? What do you think about some of the hero skins that are coming out? What do you think about For Honor 2 Year 2 that I have come up with here, Storms and Steel? Would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. Can't wait to work on Year 3, although I will wait to see what you guys think first. If you guys want me to keep going with this, I totally will. If not, we can stop here. But if you'd like to hear Year 3, let me know down in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video. Take care.